Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Got a couple Valiant comic books this week. We got Bloodshot issue number 5, Rai number 3. Which one was better than the other? I'll tell you that towards the end. For now, I'll tell you a little bit about the books itself. We're going to start off with Bloodshot issue number 5. I do want to point out a couple things. Oh look, 2 months to the date before the Bloodshot movie comes out. Also, I went and bought the pre-order editions. Yeah, that's right. That's right. You know, when they're in their pull box, I mean, what are you going to do? You know what I'm saying? You're going to ask for the stuff that you're the only one who can get. So, bang, there we go. And yes, I bought my copies. While Valiant does, heads up, send me review copies, those review copies are digital. I don't like to review digital comics. I'll read them. I do read them. It helps me to get these reviews out first day. But I don't like to actually do a review until I get the actual physical copy in my hand. And I actually pay for and purchase my physical copies. So just heads up on that. I do get these because I actually enjoy them. I actually put my money where my mouth is with these. Okay, so Bloodshot, issue number 5. This is part 2 of a storyline. Let's see. Writer Tim Seeley, artist Brett Booth, inker Adelso Corona, colors Andrew Dalhouse, Dave Sharp does the letters, and a bunch of editors. Love all the editors. I'm just saying we're gonna move on. Declan Shalvey does the cover. Okay, my peeps. So this was a really, really weird comic book, man. We start off with this one girl who is the mother of, like, she's a cyborg and she's the mama of this one person, and we wind up seeing later who that person is. We get an idea of who it is at one point, but like then it turns out there's a bait and switch. Listen, I'm going to tell you right now. Let's just get to the good parts of the comic book. The parts that had Bloodshot in it were pretty freaking cool. In some ways it could have been better, but I think that's more of an arc issue than an actual Bloodshot issue. What do I mean by that? For the most part, the idea that you've got this really awesome group called the Burned, who had a military base and then lost the military base the very next issue, like the beginning of the next issue. It's like, dude, you could have gone at least an arc exploring these characters, letting us, you know, get attached to these characters and whatnot. Instead, you just right away started killing them off in the very first issue that they were really introduced. And then in this, and that was in the previous issue, you know, and then in this issue, we get them off someplace else trying to do their own thing and hanging out and having some problems with each other within the you know, some squabbles and whatnot, which is cool. I like that there is some internal conflict, but can we also learn more about these characters? Because right now they just feel like throwaways. At this point, generally, this team that I'm just like, holy crap, when they introduce these guys, I'm like, dude, this is awesome. And then they just start haphazardly killing every single one of them, and they introduce new people and we don't get a lot of info about them, and it's like, so they're all just going to die anyway. So the only important character in this comic book is in fact Bloodshot, from my understanding, from the way that the book is being presented. Seeley is a good writer, but I'm not going to like everything that Tim Seeley does. And in this particular case, I think that the book could just be a whole lot better. Mind you, it's still a really good book. But man, like when you look at, you know, oh look, here's a good book that could be great. That kind of, there's my burnt. I feel a little bit burnt on that. They could have spent at least a story arc getting us to actually give a rat's ass about these characters. And I don't care about any of these characters. This organization that I thought was amazing is like, they're all good. They're all disposable. You know what I'm saying? They're all expendable. So who cares, right? Anyway, they go into a couple new powers that he could do because his nanites absorbed some of the tech that some of the other Burned characters can do. He has a whole bunch of abilities with sound manipulation now because of his voice. He can stun people. He can pull people out of invisibility while he himself can go into invisibility, and certain other cloaked. He can like ignore certain tracking technology. Like, dude, Bloodshot right now is just about as badass gets, man. I am loving what they're doing. And it's even better because they go and point out, it's like, yeah, all these things you can do, and a bunch of other things that I'm not going to get into right now. There's more? Like, wow, I'm loving this. But give me characters who I can care about, who are both cohorts of the main character, of the protagonist, and a bunch of antagonists that I'm not going to know any of them. Heck, the bad guys in this, they could be like some of the, they're talking about Eidolon and stuff like that. they're probably really important, saying to the book, but I, of course, don't know any of that because I'm new to Bloodshot. And that's a problem that I think could be very easily fixed. Maybe not totally easily fixed, but like you could tell us more about these characters. Anyway, the Cyborg Mama, you're not going to get because apparently that's definitely a new character. This chick, these two chicks, however, yeah, we can know about them. We can know about them, her and her. Like, we could know about them. Like, you could tell us about them, something, because they seem like they already existed before. All that being said, there's some really weird stuff here that makes me a little uncomfortable. Look, just when push comes to shove, the world is different now. Marvel and DC did a bunch of Nickett-style comic books, all right? We got this girl in here talking about, she's bending over. It's like the most ridiculous pose. If you changed this into a bare Nickett picture as opposed to a covered with yoga pants picture, these panties picture, you would have a heck of a view. I mean, like, you're seeing, like, we could have an anatomy class right there, right? And she's talking about, oh yeah, blah, 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 this new European yoga style I take, and you're supposed to do it in the nude while she's doing poses like this. Okay. So, I was 7 years old the first time that I saw nudity in a comic book, and it was Wonder Woman. Oh, I think it was like a Superman and Lois Lane comic book, and he was married but not married, but still married to Wonder Woman in this. They were over a volcano. The volcano like spurted a little bit, got her clothes on fire. This is when she was still air gliding as opposed to flying. And what do you call it? Like the uniform wasn't invulnerable. She wasn't invulnerable. She was very vulnerable. That's why she had to use the bracelets. Otherwise, she would have gotten shot. And the lava goes on her, and she's able to get the clothes off of her because the lava goes on her clothes. So she very expertly, like this little bit of clothes she's wearing, but that's where the lava hits her. And she removes the clothes, and she's naked and, flying around. And Superman flies up with a cape and wraps her up, says, "I will protect your modesty." And she's like, "I don't really need my modesty protected out here in the over the ocean. There's nobody here, but I enjoy being in your arms, superhero." And it's like, dude, what the heck is going on? But I was 7 years old, so I didn't care what was going on. I got to see Wonder Woman naked. And I'm telling you, man, like, I grew hair in places I didn't know you were supposed to grow. My voice dropped, and I got a job. Like, it was the weirdest thing. I went through puberty right there at 7 years old when I read that comic book. Cool, right? And I remember when I was older still, reading, like, the Alpha Flight books. Aurora was, like, always naked. And like little things covering, the important parts. Yeah. But that was also fairly, in some way, it was weird, but it was kind of necessary for the time because back in those days before the late 90s, there was no internet. The internet was a top secret military program that nobody, was allowed to know about. And like even when I was going through DeVry to learn electrical engineering, we didn't get taught about the internet because it wasn't a thing. It wasn't a public thing. It just wasn't. Nobody knew about it. Nobody cared. Nowadays, the internet is mostly known for, Amazon at the time when, it was just a bookstore. But now it's, you can get Amazon stuff and you can find pornography. So back in the day when it was hard and the only pornography you can get is if you were switching, through those special channels like the Spice Channel and the Playboy Channel, stuff like that. And if you go through, sometimes you get like a real quick second of it being, not blurred. Or sometimes that particular blur wouldn't be that big of a blur and you can still see it. And it's like, to help to advance our sexual maturity. Why am I even bringing this stuff up nowadays? Because we don't need stuff like that in our comic books today. But there's just no reason, man. I mean, back in the day when, you either had a father who had a small collection of Playboys or the really good stuff, or you had a friend who can get his hands on them, or you knew somebody who tried to swipe one, or you're a jackass like me who actually went and tried to buy one one time. And it's like, dude, no. They know I didn't have a beard at the time. I didn't always have a beard. When you're freaking 16 years old, you're trying to buy a Playboy. It's not going to work, right? Anyway, it was a fun experience, but still, like, that's how you got your hands on pornography back in the day. And since you couldn't get your hands on pornography most of the time, the comic books were a pretty good substitute. But modern day, man, we don't need things like Witchblade, where you just have, like, buck naked women running around and, you know, scantily in weird positions that don't make sense. You don't need stuff like that anymore. We genuinely do not need, this is just my opinion, you don't need nudity in comic books anymore. Dude, my computer's right here. I'm just saying, we could have a live viewing. You know what I'm saying? Like we could have a watch party. Like, it's the easiest thing in the world. We're not going to have a watch party. Calm down, my peeps. After this video is over, you feel free to click over to something else. But for now, we just don't need that in comic books today. So, like, I see this not as an adult who's like, nudity is bad. I am absolutely not one of those conservative Americans. I'm simply not, even though I'm living in Canada, I am an American. And I'm not one of those conservative Americans like, no, sex is bad. Sex is awesome. Heck, some of my reviews I do on Pornhub. So, I'm okay with it. But I just don't feel like stuff like this is necessary. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't add anything to the story. Genuine, like, there's no purpose whatsoever that I could see in the story. That was a huge killer point. And the idea that I'm even thinking and obviously talking about this stuff shows how distracting it was to me in the comic book. It made no sense. We've all got access to freaking pornography. Child safeguards don't work. I know. So just pointless. Maybe rethink those parts. It like, this made it feel like, you know, one of those old comic books from back in the day when it was like, well, how else are kids going to learn about this stuff, right? Nah, not necessary. Anyway, Rai, issue number 3. This was actually my favorite of the two Valiant comic books that came out this week. Let's get into who made this comic book real quick. Writer Dan Abnett, Juan Jose Ripe did the art. Colors were also Andrew Dahlhaus. And letters, Dave Sharp also. Bang. Bunch of cool editors on this. Yeah, this was a pretty fun issue. And we start off with dinosaurs chasing after Rai and Raijin. Cute little Raijin. Now look, I'm not saying that Raijin is going to win the popularity contest between Baby Groot and freaking Baby Yoda, who I call Yiddle. We are calling him Yiddle, my peeps. He's not going to win that argument, all right? He's just not. But Raijin is cool as hell. You know what I'm saying? Get him a little bit more exposure. He might be in the conversation. For now, it's just a thing. But, yeah, for those of us who are reading this, he was cool in this one. He was a straight-up butt whooper, man. He went straight after, like, there was this T-Rex that was chasing the herd, and then he goes after Raijin, and there are a couple of moments in here where he's got to, you know, face this thing, and I laughed. I laughed at a couple. And then where was Rai during this whole time? He was right next to him. Why didn't he help? Is it like the first issue where he's just like, hey, you got to figure this stuff out yourself? No. Now the freaking T-Rex. No, he wouldn't do that. No, this was a little bit different. He was kidnapped in the Matrix. Yeah, I'm going to make that comparison, okay? He was kidnapped in the Matrix. He was forced into this Matrix-like, basically like a cyber astral plane, you know? He was sucked into there by a friend of his who he was not so happy with. And then he got stuck. Yeah, that's right. So, like, this is really the crux of the story is there. And the conversation, you could tell by some of these parts, they were actually really important. All that being said, the fun parts of the comic were actually with Raijin trying to protect Rai from a freaking T-Rex. Jurassic Park, eat your heart out. This was such a fun comic book, man. I'm literally expecting, after the previous issue number 2, that, this is just going to be them going and visiting something and finding the little parts of Father someplace, that can make Father, I should say, so they could destroy them and whatnot. Nope. This issue bypassed that completely. Didn't cut anything out, just bypassed that completely, and we had a little interlude comic book that, dude, they could just keep on doing these two kinds of comics. I've honed in on one of the father parts, saying, let me go and try and take this out. That sounds sexual in its own, right? Just ignore that. The parts, you know what I mean. Anyway, one of these things, all right? And then over here, here's, in between. We killed this one. We're going to go kill this one. Here's the part in between that. Oh, my God. I'm in love with this comic book right now. I'm still like in the process of trying to read these other volumes that that Valiant sent me. But dude, forget about it, man. Wow, this is great. This is great. Learning about these other characters and whatnot, clearly they're familiar with each other. Don't know anything about them, learning about them as we go in a really cool and fun way where it's like, dude, you just did a boneheaded move right there. You just did a dum-dum. And look, now we got to try and fix this. Oh my God, we're all going to die. I'm going to be eaten by a dinosaur. This is, wow. And if you're wondering, well, how the dinosaur, what are they in the past? No. You'll have to read the comic book. You'll understand completely why this is happening. Dude, this is really good. This was a freaking fantastic issue, man. This and the previous, like the first issue was actually like pretty darned okay. But issue number 2 and 3, whoa. Right now, we've got a heck of a hot comic book, a hell of a hot comic book. I'm starting to sound like Captain America right now, right? Language. What do you got? No pornography. This seriously is a hell of a comic book, man. I am loving this right now. Still got to see what happens with Roku, but right now, oh, dude. Oh, man. And, of course, got to see what's going to happen with this. Oh, man, this is looking good. I hope I actually get an opportunity to talk to Dennis Hallam about this. Maybe after the first issue already drops. We'll see. We'll see. But, really looking forward to this. Really loving this. Guys, consider jumping on these comic books. That's real talk, man. Valiant, boom, rising. And, yeah, that's a really long review. So I'm just going to bounce. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.